the session. So we'll go ahead and start heading through the presentation on our own. Again, if there's any questions throughout, just feel free to throw them straight at me. It's a relatively high level look at what the ISO accreditation process looks like. The team and I did decide a few weeks back now, just to kind of put out a little bit more of a roadmap as to kind of what that process looks like, and pretty much just to get a bit of a simpler look at it, because a lot of clients that we speak to seem to kind of overthink that process. So we kind of wanted to kind of build it out and make it a little bit easier to understand that process. But if we're happy to get stuck into it, I'll go ahead and start heading through it. So again, thanks for jumping into the session for us, guys. We'll just be looking at the ISO accreditation process. So we call it ISO accreditation unlocked by us. So what we'll do is we'll head through the agenda today. Again, very, very light stuff. I don't want to be keeping everyone's kind of day kind of stayed kind of on this webinar here, but we will be looking at a few key areas. So one, bit more as to what the ISO kind of process is, or sorry, what ISO really is. Why become ISO accredited? So maybe more looking at the benefits at more of a detailed look rather than just simply at face value, and what's involved in that ISO accreditation process. So exactly step-by-step process, how that all works. ISO clause overview. So we are looking at purely the 9001 side of things. So there is slightly a different process for those that are looking at some of the other ones as well. So there is slightly different overviews to some of the environmental ones, to say information security and even the health and safety side of things. They are slightly different, but there are some core overlapping areas that pretty much go universal across your main ones. But again, just looking at the 9001 side of things, just because it's kind of the bread and butter when it comes to the ISO frameworks that are there. And then finally, a little bit more on the SafeWrite side of things. So a little bit more as to where we kind of slot in and where we look to kind of streamline the process. And of course, if there's any questions at the end, you can always just throw them at me. But again, if there is any questions as we go through it, just throw them straight at me and we can get straight into it. So in terms of what is ISO? So again, the ISO stands for the International Standards Organization. So their purpose is to develop standardizations in both technical and non-technical fields. They have developed over 2,000, I believe 2,400 international standards around there, and they range drastically. So they range anywhere from mechanical engineering to military affairs. So it's really all over the place. It's really across so many different sectors and so many different fields. There's so many that are kind of specific to different lines of work. So again, it's really interesting that there's so many that are out there. Your main ISO frameworks, however, they do consist of your big three. So your ISO 9001, so the quality assurance side of things, ISO 45001, the health and safety side of things, and the ISO 14001, so the environmental planner side of things. They're kind of your main focus. They always have been over recent years. Another one that's also in the mix as of kind of recently, definitely picked up demand in the past couple of years, but definitely even the past couple of months, is the information security management side of things. So that's the 27001. So it's all about cybersecurity, keeping your data locked down, things like that. And as you can imagine, even with, especially here on Oz, there has been a few breaches of data security with a lot of our telecommunications firms at the moment. So there has been kind of a definite increase in demand and kind of just in general looking to kind of keep things a little bit more safer on that end, as majority of clients, regardless of the field that you're in, are looking to keep their data protected. They are looking for that kind of that quality check. Regardless of the ISO framework, they all look to give businesses a bit of a guideline of the systems and processes needed to meet that internationally accepted benchmark. So again, ranges drastically, but for the most part, they are looking to pretty much give you a guideline as to what those standards are for that specific area. Those firms that become accredited, show to consumers, shareholders, and business partners alike that they meet those global standards. So again, the benefits range drastically, but it's attractive for potentially new clients and even strategic partnerships as well. So there's a lot of different areas in which it kind of does come into play. In terms of kind of what businesses, what is involved in that accreditation process, again, we'll kind of go through that a little bit later on. So in terms of why businesses should become accredited, most businesses do look initially towards implementing a quality management system purely as a means to become accredited and win job opportunities. So this is via tendering, by strategic partnerships, both of which are exceptional reasons and benefits to becoming accredited. However, beyond these, there are some more significant implications from a more internal perspective. So accreditation does mean that you have a central integrated management system. So all documents, updates, approvals, they're all stored and maintained via the same platform. So besides saving time, this also allows for an improvement of accessibility and reduction in the risk of loss of company data. It does also mean that as a company expands, however, there are a clear set of guidelines and procedures that minimizes the likelihood that the quality of goods or services that that particular firm offer doesn't deteriorate as it grows. It also allows for a more consistent experience from a consumer perspective, as well as the guarantee that the firm is meeting the ISO compliance there. So those documented procedures make it clear for existing and new employees to understand their responsibilities and duties. All members can see the short and long-term goals of the business as well. So again, it does kind of cover all bases, and it's not just kind of the external side of things that help with the accreditation process. Ultimately, those firms that do make the commitment to become ISO accredited have a form of differentiation over its competitors. It stands as an international symbol that your firm has met a level of quality that is internationally recognized. You can always look at it from the perspective of a consumer. If given the option to work or buy from two different firms, they offer the same products and services. They seem to be pretty much identical in every way. However, one of them is internationally recognized for higher quality, continuous improvement, stronger communication, and higher standards in general. Which one would you choose? So again, it's a really, really easy way to kind of stand out from the crowd there. Accreditation does lead to numerous other benefits as well, especially a little bit more on the financial side of things, predominantly around increased profit and customer satisfaction. A large majority of companies that achieve ISO 9001 accreditation experience an uptake of customers by even 50%. It's really that drastic. So it's insane that it happens like that. Let me just have a look here. So in terms of why become that kind of ISO accreditation process, again, you can look at it at a bit of a high level there. In terms of, apologies, my keys are breaking here. So what's involved in that ISO accreditation process? At a high level, there is pretty much more or less 3 different stages. So stage 1, once the firm kind of has all the relevant ISO documentation in place following an ISO gap analysis. So again, you will need to review exactly what you're missing in terms of where you're at in relation to that particular ISO framework. What ISO do you have all the ISO documentation in place? And then an external audit will need to be conducted. So for those that aren't aware, this is done by a third party. They will review your policies, your procedures, and your forms to fit that particular ISO framework in relation to your field of work. As the framework covers so many different industries and sectors, you'll find that some major areas have nothing to do with your line of work and so are not applicable. So this means that the associated procedures and forms will not be looked at by an auditor. It is critical to make sure that you can justify why a particular area is not covered. So again, that's more just at a high level in terms of what they're looking for in relation to that documentation. Oh, apologies, everyone. Yeah, so in terms of where you're at, and then that initial audit, again, in relation to the ISO 9001 side of things. So again, we're just kind of using that as the focus for you today. It verifies, in this case, that you have, at the very least, a quality management system in place. So it gives the reviewer an understanding as to what their policies are. If successful, then the auditor will move on to the next phase. So on the stage 2 side of things. Stage 2, the auditor will recommend certification if kind of successful on that. This will be then sent to the certification body who will review the claim, and if all goes well, will award the ISO certification. Following that certification, there are surveillance audits roughly every 9 to 12 months. More or less, they're pretty much going to be examining any updates made to your policies and procedures. That obviously can be based on any structural changes on an internal level, but it also can be looked at it in terms of the ISO standards themselves. So if there is any major updates to the ISO standards, they'll also be wanting to see that you have kind of made those adjustments and you're pretty much still on par with the ISO compliance that you originally set out to be compliant with. This can be more extensive if there have been major kind of updates to the ISO standards, but on our end, for example, on the SafeWrite side of things, we do handle those template updates as well. Recertification audits occur more on a 3-year basis. So again, this is more kind of the big review. More or less, they're going to be examining any updates made to the firm and pretty much ensure that you are still implementing that ISO framework, that you haven't just simply put these policies in place and then you've simply walked away, but there has been constant updates to it, that has been maintained, and those policies and procedures are being abided by as you move through as well. Cool. So a little bit more on the clause summary side of things. Again, we're just using 9001 as a prime example here. So again, this is kind of the main focus points for this particular framework. We understood that there can be a little bit confusion as to how it works and kind of where these kind of branches off within the framework itself is relevant in terms of building out your documents. So we thought we'd give a bit of an overview as to what they are, what they entail, and more or less kind of what the auditor would be looking for in this case. So for those that don't know, there are about 10 clauses when it comes to the 9001 side of things. So as you can see, clauses 0 to 3, they actually do classify it as 0 to 3 in this case. They're kind of your early stages. So again, it's really just more or less outlining what the benefits of implementing a QMS is. So what are those principles? So introduction, scope, references, terms and definitions. Again, it's exactly as we intend it to be. These initial clauses are not required as they're simply dealing with the scope of the standard, as well as the references to better understand the standard and the terms and conditions as you move throughout there. So really just highlighting exactly what it is that these policies are going to be looking at and where they kind of fit in. Clause 4 is obviously where it kind of starts to build out a little bit here. So this section looks to deal with the internal and external issues that influences an organization in setting and meeting its objectives, as well as the parties that interact with that particular quality management system. So that includes stakeholders and how they can affect its abilities to achieve the desired results. But it also includes the requirements about the scope and process mapping as well. So again, still kind of in the stages in terms of building out exactly what this quality management system is in relation to your particular firm there, where it's going to be fitting, and pretty much more or less what those objectives are moving forward. Clause 5. So on the leadership and commitment side of things, this section it focuses on exactly what you think it would. It concerns upper management. So it mainly focuses on promoting the customer focus across all areas of the organization, developing and standing by a quality policy that sets the direction and alignment. And it also outlines the responsibilities and authorities all over the quality management system, which clearly states who has the power to make decisions. Overall, it describes how the leaders of an organization must commit to the success of that management system, that they will provide those sufficient resources, ensure the quality policies and objectives are in place, whilst communicating its roles and responsibilities. So more or less who's going to be involved and that commitment to it. Clause 6. So on the planning for the quality management side of things, this section describes how planning must address actions and address risks and opportunities, as well as the quality objectives and how to achieve them. So it focuses on the steps you need to take to address those actions. An auditor, for example, they will need to see some kind of process for your opportunities of improvement. So this is usually one of the main areas that you would look at on your weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, 6-monthly, whatever it is, reviews. Opportunities for improvement, just on a side note, opportunities of improvement are not kind of not confined as a non-conformance. They are simply something that has been identified and should be considered when looking to implement quality objectives moving forward there. We've got to split up. Okay, sorry. Clause 7, sorry. So clause 7 is on the support side of things. So it focuses on stating the requirements for management to provide those resources. So for example, human resources, the infrastructure, your hardware and software, building facilities, work environment in general, the control of equipment to use to measure and monitor your particular product or service. So overall, what resources do we need to ensure that the organization's quality management system can run effectively? Do we need specific people with unique skill sets? Do we need specific software, for example? Do we need a way in which to monitor and track everything? Or do we have a way in which to monitor and track everything? A simple thing, for example, that an auditor will look for in an organization is an organizational chart in this. So it'll be followed by some kind of a business plan. More or less, an auditor will want to know exactly what your objectives are and how you're going to get there. So who's involved, what their roles are, and how they're linked within your organization as well. Clause 8, so on the operational planning and control side of things. So section 8 is the only part of the standard where a company can exclude sections of those requirements. So for example, this is kind of that area in which you can mark off areas that are not applicable to your line of work. So for example, a big one is in-house design and development. So that may not be something that a firm does, and so simply isn't applicable. It's not something that's justified. It doesn't line up with your line of work at all. An auditor will not be looking at it, and they will not be marking you against it if it's something that's completely out of the kind of park. This section deals with planning for products or services. So they include determining and reviewing the product requirements, design and development and purchasing, followed by manufacturing of a product or provision of a service and its supply. So again, kind of more looking at the planning and control side of things, obviously. But again, it's one of those areas that may or may not be suited or even really applicable to your line of work. Clause 9. So this section outlines requirements, so on the performance evaluation side of things, this section outlines requirements for assessing customer satisfaction, internal audit, monitoring, analysis, and an evaluation of process performance. It does outline the requirements for management review, which includes mandatory inputs and outputs for the review. Very, very simple. Clause 10. So again, very, very simple to understand. Improvement for actions. So basically, this section is going to be all about stating how your quality management system will be looked at in a kind of constant evolution or way of looking at it in improvement. So, how your quality management system will be improved through corrective actions and continual development or continual improvement overall. Very, very simple on that side of things. And this is just more or less at a high level for those. We just wanted to make it a little bit easier to read. But as you can see, it is a really easy process when you break it down on a clause by clause basis. It's really not too tricky. So a little bit more on the About Us side of things. So again, where the SafeWrite side of things come into play. SafeWrite pretty much aims to ease the accreditation process from start to finish for small to medium-sized businesses by offering a complete end-to-end solution. So again, this is more for those that aren't aware as to where SafeWrite comes into it. Our software is designed to kind of take you through each one of those stages in terms of the initial kind of getting your documents in place, all the way until maintaining and even hitting those kind of surveillance audits so that your accreditation is still guaranteed. So our software all the way through offers pre-built templates. So we mainly look to fit your main ISO frameworks. So 9001, so the quality assurance side of things, 14,001, so the environmental planner side, and the 45,001 side of things, and is the health and safety side of things. So as I mentioned, we do also, we do offer the 27,001 side of things as well, which has definitely be picked up in kind of demand as time has gone on. All of our templates themselves, they're about 70 to 90% of the content is ready-made. It's really only a process of requiring some minor adjustments to make it a little bit more specific to your firm. The platform itself, again, is designed to walk you through that stage. So some main features that are in there, I know that some of our clients are a little bit more familiar with it as they kind of go through it. But in terms of the main features that an auditor would be looking for is, your automatic version control side of things. So basically what that means is any of the changes that you make to any of the documents, you have a complete history log there, which is one really, really handy for best practices anyway. It means that you've basically got that safety net. It's very difficult to kind of lose any data if you have all these revisions of all previous kind of work. But it also just means that it's an easy way for an auditor to quickly jump in, review what your documents are, what changes have been made, if any, and pretty much see kind of where you're at in terms of keeping them updated. We do also have employee compliance side of things as well. So that's a little bit more on impressing the auditors in terms of being able to send out the documents to, internal or third-party members and then track their responses. So acknowledgements, contests, any comments they make, anything like that. It's all done within the platform itself. So you don't need to necessarily pull that out and keep a manual basis of it elsewhere. It's really all done through the platform itself. A little bit more in terms of our why there. But again, our platform allows our clients to become ISO compliant with those above standards. But again, with minimal effort from your end. We don't kind of want our clients constantly recreating something from scratch. We did find that there are a lot of core areas that are kind of universal across the majority of fields. So really for the process of building out the same thing over and over and over again, we realized that we could obviously help streamline that process, make it a little bit easier so that you can get back to doing things that are a little bit more focused on the business rather than just simply kind of getting these sort of things in place and eating up a lot of your time there. So we do look to save you kind of time and money creating these documents from scratch, also covering any updates made to the framework itself. So we update the templates which ensure that you're always compliant as I previously mentioned. Apologies. So a little bit more on the SafeWrite methodology, again, just at a high level. We do have a little bit more of a say it, do it, prove it side of things. So again, these are in relation to those 3 stages that I mentioned. A little bit more as to kind of how your management system is documented, getting kind of the internal processes and documents kind of built out, getting your core foundation in place, more or less across the line to hit those accreditation standards. And then the do it side of things is a little bit more on the kind of HSEQ side of things. So we speak to so many clients or potential clients or ones that are getting stuck into the tools. We know that they're looking to kind of scale and grow up, and simply being a paper-based firm or having paper-based systems and processes just simply isn't going to cut it anymore. It relies, it causes way too many kind of errors and just simply inefficiencies in general. So obviously our system is designed to kind of accelerate the process, but also make it a little bit, definitely a lot more simpler to go through it. And this is more, again, a little bit more on a high level as to kind of where we come into it. So again, the documentation side of things is kind of your first stage, the integrated registers, so our HSEQ side of things, as well as the automatic reminders that come through it. And obviously it does kind of continue on from there. So there's a lot of different kind of moving pieces to the tools themselves. We do look to kind of stay with you as you move through every stage, and obviously not kind of simply give you these documents and walk away. It's more of an ongoing process. We do look to kind of support you as we move through it as well. So on that side of things, this is more or less what our ideal certification roadmap looks like. We do have our clients kind of get stuck into the tools. Again, as I mentioned, we don't look to simply give you these tools and walk away. The idea is to get you into the tools, go through these onboarding sessions with your account executive. So it could be myself, could be one of my other colleagues as well. But for the most part, we take you through, show you exactly best practices in terms of how these documents work or how the tools work, lay out a bit of a roadmap in terms of, are you looking to get these in place in the next week, 2 weeks, month, whatever it may be, depending on what your time frame is like. And obviously we kind of put in check-ins moving forward from there as well. So again, more or less at a high level, onboarding sessions, building out that documentation side of things, getting the implementation of that framework in place, working with either one of our network of auditors. So we do have a group of external auditors that we refer our clients to if you are interested. However, if you do have one already on your end, obviously the same process applies. Get that in place, hopefully hit the accreditation standards, be awarded that certification. And from there, we do look to kind of move towards the other side of our tools in terms of being able to stay on top of logging your corrective actions, the incident reporting side of things, being able to stay on top of non-conformances, things like that. All the automation and all of those reminders are designed to kind of be implemented through the system itself, so that when those reviews come around or when those kind of surveillance audits come around, it's not like a really big kind of scary introduction or a scary kind of event. Or everything will be in place so that you can obviously continue to maintain that accreditation there. So again, more just at a glance on that side of things. Is there kind of any questions on that side of things, guys? For the most part, that's the accreditation process at a whole, without me throwing too much of the SafeWrite side of things at you. Obviously, this is more looking at a high level in terms of the 9001 side of things. But for the most part, the process is exactly the same, regardless of the ISO framework that you're going for. A little bit more on the SafeWrite side of things. Again, we kind of do have a relatively big team depending on kind of who you work with. On my end, we do have Ben Hickey on the kind of support side of things. So again, just on top of the kind of training side, it's not necessarily just 1 session or 2 sessions with your account executive. We also do run extensive webinar sessions as well. So I know that for a fact that Ben on the support side runs weekly webinar sessions. This is designed for, even simply just a refresher on how to use the tools, a way in which for you to jump in and ask any questions, but a way in which for you to access any of our team on a weekly basis and a little bit more of a face-to-face kind of session, and use it as a way to get a bit of understanding as to how the tools work. But we also do have email support. We are accessible through phone, obviously, and we also do have an extensive knowledge base as well. So we do have recorded sessions, walkthroughs, and kind of that's designed for you to be kind of access throughout your process as well. Whether or not it's kind of after hours, you can always jump in and kind of review any of the kind of walkthroughs that we have there. But yeah, that's more or less it from my end, guys. Is there kind of any questions on that side of things? We wanted to keep it relatively high level. We didn't want to obviously take up too much of your time, but yeah, that's more or less it from my end. Is there any questions on that side, guys?
No, I'm all good.
Perfect. Yeah, well, obviously we wanted to kind of keep it high level. And if you did have any questions on the ISO accreditation process, that you could throw them my way, even if it's the process itself or if it's the SafeWrite tools, then you could obviously kind of have free range to do that. But on that note, Catherine, are you currently going down the accreditation process at the moment, or is this more or less kind of just?
Yeah, we're just starting. I've been involved with businesses before that have been accredited, and I'm just looking at trying to introduce that to our business here. But obviously, it's a bit mind-boggling for the directors. So I've perhaps got to take a more simplistic road map to them, so that they understand the benefits of accreditation, because we're taking on some corporate contracts, and I'm starting to find and also, as you say, winning contracts as well. If we have the accreditation behind us already, then it makes that process so much easier and better.
No, excellent. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you're toying with the idea on the accreditation side. Is that purely the quality assurance side of things, or is that environmental and the health and safety side of things? Because it does tend to range.
It's more that most of them are at this stage are requiring the health and safety compliance part, but we that's our first step, and then we would be looking at the engineering and product standards as well after that. But at this stage it's around the health and safety, because corporate sites, because we're in construction on site, on other people's sites, so we have to provide some platform or something that shows them that we do have that all in place. So it's quite complex, as you know. So
absolutely. No, on that, I was going to say, on that side of things, a lot of our clients as well, obviously, again, range drastically across multiple different fields. So it's not simply just looking at the kind of main three, health and safety and quality assurance side of things. For example, obviously looking more on the engineering side of things is a very unique field. It's obviously very specific. But another interesting point on that is majority of the ISO kind of frameworks, there is so much overlap across them. So for a fact, I know that a lot of our clients seem to easily tweak, say, the ISO 9001 templates to fit something so specific as, what was the term? Medical supplies as well. It was very, very unique, but the only difference between the two frameworks was really a couple of policies or procedures, or a couple of specific areas that really change whether or not it's one framework or another. So for the most part, all of the kind of core areas branch off from those main three, and it makes it so much easier. You can always build it out directly from there. And I know that a lot of our clients have kind of done that. So it's kind of interesting to see that they kind of overlap between the many that are there. But that's fantastic to hear, Catherine. Hopefully it all goes well on that side. If there isn't obviously any questions on that side, if you need more detail from our end or where we kind of slot in, then please do reach out. But if there's no other questions from anyone else, then I'm more than happy to kind of wrap things up from my end. If there's any questions, I'll leave it open for the next couple of minutes. But otherwise, that's pretty much it from mine, guys. Thank you all for jumping into the session.